Good morning, everybody. Indeed, a very good morning from a very, very sunny London. What a lovely period of weather we seem to be having right now, which has just been an absolute joy. So good morning and welcome. I hope you're getting a chance to enjoy the sunshine somewhere out there. This is the Retail Customer Engagement webinar from the Retail Bulletin. Welcome back. We haven't been around for a month or so, but it's great to have you back with us. And I've got a brilliant panel, which I'm going to introduce to you shortly. As always with these events, it's your webinar for you to get involved. And so if you can think about any questions that you might want to ask these esteemed panelists throughout the next 50 minutes or so, get involved. There's a Q&A button somewhere on your device, either top or bottom of the screen. Use it, and I promise as the moderator of this that every single question that gets asked gets answered. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm Darren. I wear a few different hats. I have a consultancy called Williams Harding, which is in its 5th year, a skincare business called Scrubbed, and a PR company called Liberty. So there you go. How's that for a mixture? But I also do lots of these things for the Retail Bulletin, and I love doing them. Date for your calendar, by the way, we're doing a live on the 8th, 9th of November in London. Watch this space. We'll be releasing more information about that event coming up, but a real live 2-day event with people that you can see in 3D and touch shoulders with and have cups of tea and coffee with, and then something stronger on the first night because we're going to have a 20th birthday party as well. So yeah, put that in your diary, and the Retail Bulletin will be releasing more details about that soon. And then for those of you that's going to ask where the dog is, she's not here. I've just been away on holiday for a little break, and so's the dog, and I pick her up tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. So no Scamp interruptions today, I'm sorry. I know some of you sometimes just join to see Scamp. You're going to be disappointed. She's not with us and not co-presenting with me today. Apologies. Let's get on with it. I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. I think one of our panelists might be having a sound issue, but we'll find out as we go along. So firstly, I'm going to start with you, Scott, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Morning. Nice to meet you all. Look forward to having a great discussion over the next hour. So my name is Scott Minihane. I'm one of the senior enterprise sales managers here at Infinity. We have a focus within the retail sector. I've worked in the business now for around 6 years. Really exciting time for us, seeing the evolution of our traditional core product of call tracking and how that's now evolved into call intelligence, with the combination of taking, that traditional product of call tracking and combining it with conversation analytics to really start to capture those key touch points of that customer journey from the whole online journey, and provide those valuable insights from conversations that you're having and your customers and prospects are having with you guys to, really help drive marketing optimization to operational efficiencies to helping impact revenue. So yeah, great to be joining with you guys today.
Thank you, sir. And also, Scott, I should just say thank you to you and Infinity for sponsoring the event and helping make it happen today as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Desi, over to you, sir. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here and with my fellow esteemed panelists as well. So my name is Desi Reuben-Sealey. I work for Victorinox, and my position there is the Senior UX Manager. So my job really is to make sure that we lead and oversee and evolve the customer experience and user experience and design for our consumers, not just on our digital platforms, but also other channels as well. We're really trying to look at how we can advance the service blueprint for our consumers and our brand. And we're on the eve of a complete change where we're digitally transforming as well. That's something that I'm deeply part of, helping the company to create a composable world for the benefit of our consumers in 2023.
Good to have you back, sir. And I know you've done some panels with the Retail Bulletin before, so thank you for supporting us again. Steve, how's that sound going?
I'm back.
Good.
Thanks,
well, Steve, tell us about you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm Steve Webster. I work for a business in the UAE called Liwa Stores. I've been with the business for about 6 months. Liwa operates 20 brands. We have about 250 retail stores. My role is to develop the digital and e-commerce proposition, which is still in its infancy here in the market. We have 5 websites with another 3 to come online before the end of the year. And my role, leading the e-commerce and digital function, is to understand our customer, develop the right proposition with our host brands and our own brands, and deploy that across the 6 countries that we trade in.
Welcome, sir. And the sound's a little bit muffled, but I think we've got you enough. So yeah, just hopefully that will stick with us and stay with us. So Steve is joining us from Abu Dhabi this morning. So I'm not blaming the Abu Dhabi Wi-Fi, but he is some distance away. So we'll see how that sound holds. Welcome. Shweta, tell us about you. Sorry to keep you waiting, but yeah, that's last but not least.
That's okay, Darren. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Shweta and I work for Samsung, and I sit in the European head office, and within that I sit in the category insights team. And then within that, my role is really focusing on home appliances for Samsung Europe. So what does it mean in terms of insights? It's really trying to be the voice of reason, the voice of the customer, so the business doesn't go off and kind of make decisions without thinking about what does the customer ultimately want and need, and also to be the kind of intermediary between the European markets that we work with, but also the Korean headquarters, to really help them understand the European market better and develop products that will fit with the consumer needs.
Welcome, and it's great to have you with us as well. That's our lineup, everybody. So as you can see, we've got plenty to talk about with this panel this morning as well. And a reminder for you to get involved. You don't just have to sit there and listen, you can get involved, and don't forget to use that Q&A button to direct a question. You might just have a general panel question, or you might have a burning question that you particularly want to ask one of these faces on the screen. So look, we're going to look at what the biggest retail challenges are when it comes to engaging the modern shopper. And so we're going to start to unpack it, and I'm going to jump, if I may, to Scott to start with. Scott, how are customers talking to us? I mean, do you think shoppers are going to keep picking up the phone now that lockdowns are done and dusted?
Yeah, good question. I guess in a nutshell, yes, yeah, absolutely. And we've got data that we're seeing within our existing client book that is evident that's going to continue. And I think if you think around that kind of, I guess, the whole customer journey now, and off the backdrop of lockdown and the pandemic, where it probably drove a lot of people to pick up the phone because they can't have that human interaction of going in store to potentially purchase, or have that security blanket of having a conversation around a particular product or purchase. So they want to have that sensory check that it is exactly what they want to invest in. And I think when we think around the phone call, it's not necessarily always just that last leg or last conversion point that, okay, they've done their research online, they might have interacted via a live chat, they might have engaged in store, but actually then they've actually phoned up and made that purchase. It's equally with the different touch points now, and I think that customer journey being very fragmented, and the phone call is now and will continue to be a key part of in that customer journey, whether it's at the end of the journey or actually it's that initial point of actually I want to engage, just confirm something, and then they might purchase then online, or they might go in a store and purchase. For me, it feels like the phone call is going to continue to play a key role. And I saw a stat the other week that they say that 78% of shoppers still want to interact with a human before purchasing. So again, I guess that kind of takes into consideration that in-person interaction, but equally on the phone, again, just confirmation. Myself, I don't know, when I'm making kind of substantial purchases, I still want to phone up and just ensure that this sofa that I'm buying is definitely the one that I want. It's in the right color. When's it coming? And I can purchase different, I guess, sector. But again, with holidays, again, still for me, I'm still the same person. I want to ring up and make sure I'm definitely going to this place, this hotel, and purchasing. So that phone call for me, is going to continue to play a key role in customer engagement ongoing. And when we look at some of our data from our retail book of existing clients at the moment, come the first week of January this year, phone calls are up by 33% month on month, which by the second week in January, is up by 45%, which I guess isn't uncommon for January. As a business in the retail, we know also there's a lot of, I guess, promotions, offers at the start of the year, people wanting to invest and make purchases and make changes. So not uncommon, but when we look at it from a year-on-year perspective at the same time, is actually up 124% this year as opposed to a 50% increase last year. So again, that for me is just kind of, I guess, showing that there is data that we're seeing within our clientele that is, I guess, backing up that, yeah, the phone call is going to continue to kind of play a key role and continue to take place. And I think if we look at, I guess, kind of what's happening around the backdrop of the back of, I guess, we had COVID over the last couple of years and the lockdowns. If we think around now when people are making those purchases and maybe the role of that phone call, certainly the cost of living increasing, people are probably going to be a little bit more sensitive around making different purchases. So again, they probably want to have that sensory check of having that phone call, again, that kind of security blanket of talking to someone that, okay, I want to make this purchase, whether they're buying maybe a laptop or a sofa, a bed, who knows what it might be, anything across kind of that retail space. It's very diverse, but actually, and it could be something from a small investment to a higher investment, but either way, everyone's got their own budgets and sensitivity around what they want to purchase in, and they want to make sure that they're making the right purchase. And that phone call for me, yeah, it's still going to play a fundamental part within that customer journey at multiple different stages in that journey as well.
Thank you, sir. And I think we're going to go on to Desi, but I think Desi, you want to just quickly tail end on the back of this point, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Scott has a really key point there, because it does also lend to the consumer behavior just by their personality. And I think that's really key for employers to try and understand organizations. So what kind of customer, what kind of personality, do they have? Are they an extrovert? Are they an introvert? Based on their behavior, they're more inclined to use different methods of customer contact.
Got it. Desi, stay with me now, because I'm going to come on to you next as well. I want to talk about planning. Planning, things can go wrong with customer experience, and then we have a disaster on our hands. Why is it important to understand that customer journey across channels when it comes to their negative engagement?
Yeah, I think that's a really key question to ask as well. Thanks, Darren. Contacting customer services normally generally reflects in a UX failure. And this can happen based on a study that I read some time ago via NNG, the Institute. Around 64% of medium to complex customer journeys, this is where that contacting customer service generally tends to happen. And again, this kind of speaks to Scott's point as well as to why customers reach out via the phone or via any kind of method. But it's important for everyone to kind of understand, first of all, why customers contact organizations. There's normally 4 key things, right? So we're talking about service problems, roadblocks, missing or incomplete information, confusing information even, or even perception of complexity. For example, if you're trying to upload a product review because you had a great experience, whether that's a service or an actual product, sometimes it can be verbose, or you could say vague system error messages that may pop up on the form you're using. And all of a sudden you don't understand, what did I do wrong? So there's things like that kind of like could be perceived as roadblocks or perceptions of complexity. But it's important to make sure that to reduce the needs of the user, it doesn't mean removing ways in which customers can contact you as an organization. It really means that you'd have to step away from the features and the functionality that you have and really focus on understanding the context around why and how users or customers move through your solutions, move through your website to complete the task that may seem to be quite important to them. So questions such as like, what triggers them to go around your website? Is it a monthly newsletter? Is it some kind of other marketing material? Or is it another channel that prompted them to go from one, such as social media, to the website and then transfer their procurement process or experience to an actual physical store? It could be any reason as to why they've done those things. So when it comes to making sure that we create that environment where someone can contact, I think some key things are really important to focus on. It's making that transition as seamless as possible, and then making sure that we provide multiple ways in which a customer can contact somebody, because it's easy to forget about the negative path. We always design for the happy path, but we don't always factor in, almost like an afterthought, that customers do need help, they do need reassurance, and they do need ways in which they can contact the brand.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that, a brand being open about the fact that they know they can get things wrong sometimes, yeah? So it is almost having that kind of ability to admit, it's not always right, and then how you deal with that not always right moment is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Steve, how's your sound doing? You good?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can actually. It's perfect. It sounds good.
Good.
So, customer insight. What's a simple and cost-effective way to extract meaningful information around customer insight?
Yeah, good question. There's lots of ways that we can get customer insight, and customer journey mapping, the kind of work I'm sure Desi and everyone else in the panel undertake is great and really meaningful. But if you have to work on a small budget and short time frames, I think there are shortcuts that you can take to get useful insight from the consumer. And there's two ways that I would propose that most people can access that customer insight cost effectively and quickly. The first one is through your customer service team. Now here we run a very small customer service team. We're very light and very lean. What we've introduced to that team is a simple contact form. So every time the customer contacts our customer service team, they allocate that contact into one of 4 or 5 buckets. Is it a customer request? Is it a customer query? Is it a complaint? Or is it triggering a return? And then we ask that customer service team on a weekly basis, from your interaction with the customer in each of those buckets, what are the primary drivers for the customer contacting us? And then that gives us an action list to work on. Another really cost-effective way that we found incredibly useful is a simple exit survey on the website. So I'm sure everyone's seen it when they're browsing the website. We served a little pop-up saying, have you got a few minutes to answer a few questions for us? And as the customer's leaving the website, what we did, and we did this in Saudi Arabia on a really sizable enterprise, was ask the customer, what stopped you buying today if you didn't buy? What were your concerns? And we ran this program every month. We would serve it to about 200 customers. We used a free tool to do it, no cost at all. And then we would sit and analyze those 200 responses that we got every month. And we would see trends coming through that. So the first trend for us was that the quality of our Arabic translations weren't good enough in our search field. Second theme that came through was there was a lack of content that helped the customer select between complex products. And then the third theme that came through was that they didn't believe that our pricing and promotion was as aggressive as it had been in previous years. So we were able to take these big buckets and then apply actions to address them and then measure the performance every month. So the example I gave around pricing and promotion, we took that to our commercial team and said, this is what our customers are telling us. Let's put a plan together to see how we can address that point of friction for the customer. By running the same survey every month, we could see that over the course of 6 months, we almost completely erased that as a point of friction for the customer.
Were you surprised by that? I mean, did you, in terms of the speed at which that happened, or is it kind of, did it follow expectations?
Well, I think the first thing that came as a surprise to the business was that it was a point of friction for the customer at all. Right. Because the company had built its reputation on strong pricing and promotion. And then to be told, after we started running these surveys, that actually it was a barrier to customers transacting with them. It made us go back and address our pricing and proposition, go out to the market, see where we thought our customers were buying from instead of us, and realign our pricing and promotion activity. And it took 6 months to address. Our CEO wanted it addressed within a week, so he wasn't happy with the time frame. But I felt that the speed that we turned that dial and the significance with which we turned that dial was a big achievement.
Good stuff. Thank you, sir. And take a sip of something, and we'll come back to you shortly. Shweta, thank you for being so patient. I'm going to come to you now, if I may. Talking to customers, how do we change how we speak to customers across different channels?
Yeah, sure. This is something that we think a lot about at Samsung, and we actually spend a lot of time and kind of research to really figure this bit out. I think the challenge is really that there's no one way, and every category is different, every kind of purchase journey is different, which makes that so much more challenging. I think it's really important to understand what consumers are looking for at every different touch point. And really, we need to put a bit of a category lens on that. So, for example, if you take, something like a tech, consumers might want a lot more kind of specification and kind of information on what they get for their money. Whereas something like makeup, let's say, consumers might be looking for social proof and images. And so, it really does vary. One way to really understand this is, of course, if you've got web analytics, is to really look at what consumers are engaging with on the website, what things are they using, what aren't they, and what learnings can we take with this. Stores are, of course, a lot more complicated, but it's always really important to go into your stores and see what people are engaging with, what kind of questions are they asking the store staff, and take note from that. Just from my own experience in working in home appliances, we've done lots of deep dives into the consumer purchase journey across different categories, and even within home appliances, the purchase journey is really different. So for example, when we're looking at vacuum cleaners, for example, you've seen the rise of the likes of Dyson. Consumers really spent a lot of money and their own kind of time investment in searching online, figuring out all the specifications, really getting to the nitty gritty of what makes a really good premium jazzy vacuum cleaner. So by the time they go into store, they already know exactly what they want. All they want to do in store is, try it out, make sure they're happy with spending 600, 800 pounds, whatever they're going to do. But they really consider themselves category experts. So they don't want to talk to staff at all. Now, the opposite end of that is washing machines. Consumers really don't want to think about washing machines. They only buy it when it's broken down and they've got no other choice. They go online, realize that there's, every washing machine looks identical. It's a lot to take on. So they're like, you know what, forget this. I'm going to go to store, go straight to staff, and they'll be like, tell me what I need to buy. So in that sense, it's really important thinking about then what information do I provide when. So for us, one takeaway from that is, with store promoters, there's no point investing in store promoters on vacuum cleaners because consumers already feel like they know everything they need to know. Whereas on washing machines, that's where we need to be putting our investment, because consumers really do need a bit of that helping. And as a general rule, I would also say it's really important, when thinking about what we put where, to really make sure we've got a good balance of inspiration, information, and promotion. I think what tends to happen is that, every brand, every retailer feel like, let me tell you everything I have to say about this product, or, and it can be quite overwhelming for customers. So making sure you're really kind of balancing that with where do they want that information and where are they just looking for some, inspiration and advice, and maybe a bit of a discount as well.
Got it. Thank you. I was smiling about the washing machine example, because it never actually occurred to me that washing machines all the time do look the same, don't they? So you're just standing out on price, I guess, in that particular sector. Yeah, it's just all about price and functionality.
Yeah, I think it's really around, exactly as you said, it's around price and functionality. But I mean, who really wants to learn about functionalities of a washing machine? There are so many, even when you take ours, there's about 15 different features we can talk about, and consumers don't want to learn. They just want someone to tell them what to buy and, take their advice. So that's why the purchase journeys do look so different across different categories.
There's some great examples there. Thank you so much, Shweta. And I'll come back to you shortly. So you've heard from all of our panelists so far. Don't forget, if you want to ask a question, you're very welcome to use the Q&A button, and I will get it directed to the appropriate panelist. Steve, I think you were wanting to just add a little tail end onto the washing machine point, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So the customer survey, an exit survey I was just referencing in Saudi, one of the products we were looking at was washing machines. And actually, fairly consistent feedback was there wasn't enough content to help the customer decide between the washing machines. So we tried putting all of the brand content up there, all of the features and functionality. and we didn't really see any movement in that. We got the acknowledgement the content was there. So we then went to interview some customers specifically about washing machines, and we found out what they wanted was they wanted to understand which washing machine fitted their lifestyle. So we then overlaid on top of the content for size of family, number of washes per day, number of weeks per day, life stage as well. And it was that additional content that helped us drive the conversion on the washing machines.
That's a great point, Steve. And I think, again, yeah, in terms of information, it's really around kind of humanizing the language. You know, sometimes people forget that, you know, consumers don't know what a digital inverter is, what is 9 kg, how many people is that for, and really kind of putting your day one or consumer hat on and be like, would I understand this if I was a consumer? Probably not. How do we make it into language that someone, you know, a layman would understand?
Thank you, guys. Scott, I'm going to come back to you, if I may, and go back to that telephone discussion that we had. And obviously, you've already explained to us that the telephone is still a strong medium, if you like, for customers to talk to us. But how important is it to start looking at the call data that then produces as a source of rich insight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of echoing that initial point of the phone call still playing a fundamental role in a customer's journey at multiple different stages. And I think kind of Desi mentioned it as well with regards to making sure that the customers and I guess businesses have that ability to interact with the different types of personas that people have as well. Some people are going to want to be on the phone and have that conversation and a security blanket. Other people will be purely transactional, e-commerce, go online, purchase, or just go in store and purchase. But I think with that phone call playing a role at some point within that customer journey, to really understand how we engage with our customers, to give them the best experience, to be able to, I guess, optimize the insights of getting from the different touch points. And with that customer journey now having so many options now on how they can engage with people, whether it's a live chat, a form fill, in person, online only, to a phone call, it's important to have all that valuable insight. So when a phone call is taking place, let's capture that insight. And there's multiple different reasons as to why that's useful for, depending on maybe which department or area of the business that you sit in. If we think about it from a marketing standpoint, if we're a business that, I know a high percentage of our business might come via the phone, or we know that they might convert at a higher rate because they're usually further down that sales funnel and they want to just make that final sensory check with a phone call. Often it might be the higher ticket value items that people will want to call up and make that purchase because they just want to ensure that, yeah, I'm investing X amount of money. I want to make sure it is the right product for me. If we think around from a marketing standpoint, you can start to capture and understand exactly which different channel, whether it's you're investing in paid search, social, that is driven that phone call that has then resulted in those conversions. So again, we might want to optimize our budget to a greater degree to be able to drive more of what's working for us as a business. Operationally, we might want to understand how potentially clients are engaging with us from maybe an after sales perspective, from a support perspective, and really start to capture that enriched conversation and taking that data from the conversations that your clients and prospects are having with you and turn that into insight. So are we seeing that, I think kind of to your point with regards to, and you just mentioned it, Steve, as well, with regards to what we're putting on the website from a content perspective. And are we seeing that people are phoning up and aren't answering or asking certain questions around a certain product when actually really we should see that as the information's on the website, just go and convert online. If they're calling up a laptop, for example, I want to know is there a warranty or what's the processor like in this laptop. Maybe we're seeing that multiple times. So actually we need to, if we don't want those phone calls, for example, we want that person to convert online, let's make sure the content is relevant and we're negating those phone calls. Equally, if we're trying to encourage phone calls, we want to understand why people are calling and capture that insight. I think Google say that only 11% of a purchase journey can be classed as online only. So again, that just shows the importance of all the different touch points and collating all that information together and being able to then take it, enhance it, and utilize it in the various different areas within the business that you might be engaging with your customers. There's a lot of insight to be captured from the phone call. I think we probably, a lot of times, customers that I talk to and in general, we probably always feel like we understand our our customers and how they engage with us, and we feel like we're probably getting the right messaging across, and we understand that kind of path to conversion or path to engagement. But quite equally, once you start to, I guess, capture the conversations and take that data and bring it into insights, there's a whole host of information that is highly valuable. And I think of a client that we worked with recently, Specsavers, for example, done some. Please excuse me, we've got a fire alarm test that's now gone. That's great, right on cue. But yeah, so for those guys, they've done some amazing stuff with regards to our call data by a 32% reduction in CPA. But I think one of the really insightful insights they gained was around mental health. And again, kind of think about the different personas. They've got obviously a domiciliary part of the business that services people that then come out and do home visits. And they actually realized from taking our insights from our conversation, or their conversations, and being able to take the insights from the data, is they were getting asked quite a few questions all the time when people were calling up, was around, I know that people might be struggling with mental health and actually need that bit more support. Can you cater for us, etc. So there's a bit of a messaging there that's really insightful for them as business, that they didn't even realize potentially that was kind of a part of a market that they need to kind of really think around how they engage with those types of people that are going through those challenges. And again, it's just bringing more to light around what your customers are saying to you and how you can really engage with them. So I guess to kind of wrap it all together again, for me, absolutely, with the phone call playing a role, it may not be a key role, it's going to be a part of that customer journey, then we want to capture every single touch point and engagement that your clients and prospects are having with you, because there's and kind of build that into that customer journey to then start to be able to optimize it and transform it moving forward.
Thank you, sir. I think, Desi, before we come back to you, you want to add on to this point as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really great question. And I love the emphasis Scott's making as well upon the insight that can be gained from call data. And call data, to be fair, can be overlooked quite often in organizations, especially when it comes to using it as actionable insight across different channels. So what it does reveal, though, are potential opportunities or issues or challenges that a brand would have to tackle and overcome when it comes to aligning their brand and their service to their customers' needs. It's a really important thing to remember.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you, if I may. So when people watching now are considering or implementing a good customer engagement strategy, always a mouthful, how do web or app features correlate into that?
Yeah, the more Darren, users are engaged, normally correlates to the more features an application can sustain. So let's unpack that just a bit. So most users have a lower level of commitment, and this is especially on websites, right? So websites generally have to focus on simplicity and what's important to the user, which is why there are so many different studies and tests to try and understand what customers are doing, the moments in their journey, what they're thinking about, such as what Shweta kind of like alluded to as well. Great point there. And all of these things, rather than features. So to ensure kind of like good customer engagement, when designing an interface or a solution or a service, one of the key decisions we need to kind of like think of is the trade-off between features and simplicity. So the more features we have, is the more complicated the system invariably then becomes. So features have to be shown to the user, for example, so screens can get busier when that happens. Menus, they can get bigger the more features you add. So that means that there's cognitive load, customers get confused, there's too much choice. Then features have to be explained, especially if there's too many. So that balloons the size of anything such as documentation, especially if it's a service or a physical product that you're giving to a consumer. So we're not just talking about digital, we're talking about any form of product or service you offer to a customer, which will cause them to engage with you as a brand. So you've got extra features that may, in fact, extra features as a thought, this is a good one, can invariably create a noose for consumers, for them to proverbially hang themselves. What do I mean by that? Well, if we think about it digitally, we're talking about errors of intent and errors of execution. So an error of intent is something where someone thinks they need to use a feature, but it's the wrong feature. But then an error of execution is where there's a slip. They thought, oh, right, this is the wrong button that I've just clicked because it's too close to another series of buttons. So whilst you may have tried to apply, you could say, some usability laws to group certain buttons together, you put too many in one place, so all of a sudden it makes it really finite for the consumer to try and click and try and work out the correct one to choose and to continue their journey. Adobe Photoshop, Adobe as an organization, as an example, this is way back in 2007, they had 3 offerings of their Photoshop solution to consumers. They had CS, Elements, and if I recall, it's Album. Now, each one had different levels of complexity in features and in terms of their interface, and they clearly appealed to different types of consumers. So that was a win for them, because, you know, when we think about it and we try to, you could say, pull that back to the question in itself, answering one question is really, really key. Is, do customers care deeply about our solution, or do they just want to get something done as quickly as possible, or do something that's important to them? That should help us to understand that correlation. When we understand our consumers in terms of what they need, then we can simplify our solution, and instead of throw everything at them and say, what if they want this, what if they want that? Actually, it's not really about the ifs, it's about actually what they do want, put in the work, and we can find out the answer.
Thank you very much. Audience, if you've got any questions so far based on anything Desi's just said or anything you've heard from the panel so far, there's tons of good content coming out, I'm sure you'll agree. But yeah, don't be shy. You're a very quiet bunch this morning. You're staying with us, which is good. I can see the audience, but you're not asking any questions. And just a reminder that you can. Going back to Steve, obviously, Steve, you've already shared some great examples of insight. How do people listening develop that kind of CX improvement from customer insight? What would be the measures of improvement that you would recommend or you use yourselves in your business?
Sure. So it's a relatively simple process in my mind anyway. It's measure, test, measure, refine, and repeat. It's a cyclical process. Just like UX and usability, as Desi's mentioned there. And it is all about, again, something else Desi mentioned, which is actionable insight. So the process should really be, you take the available insight and document it. What do I mean by document it? It can be a weekly report, a monthly report, a dashboard, however your business best engage with that insight. And measurement, and then set your plans. The customers will tell you, they will let you know where their barriers are. Customers ultimately want a frictionless engagement with you, whether that's in a research phase, a purchase phase, or post-purchase when they're looking for service or returns. The customer will typically be vocal when there is a problem, particularly if you give them the tools to provide that response to you. So group the issues, give them top line banners or headings, as I mentioned before, around requests, queries, complaints, returns process. And then score it. You know, if I have 1,000 customer contacts and 250 of those contacts are people asking me, what is the correct size of this shirt for me? It's a clear indicator that you have an issue with your sizing information. Customer has a point of friction around sizing. So identify the bigger issues or the issues that have a sizable price to them or ease of impact. So effectively, you need to create a matrix for yourself. I have 1,000 customer complaints, 250 are one issue. That issue is easy to address, but yes, it will ease the customer. But actually for me as a business, there's another issue here raised by 50 customers, but the cash return on that is significantly higher. And then prioritize your response accordingly. So set your priorities according to the price of the business. Put your plan in place, document it, and then start actioning it. Put your dates for when you will action it by and when you expect to see the response in customer experience. And then repeat your measures. And then
measure, test, measure, refine, repeat. I think I heard right at the beginning of your
exactly that, Darren. And it just becomes an ongoing process.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Shweta, who's been waiting patiently there again as well. Shweta, let's talk about stores. We talked a bit about stores before. So the role of the store, it's been debated a lot, and death of the high street and all that kind of stuff. But how do you see the role of the store changing in this kind of online obsessed industry that we're now finding ourselves in?
Sure, yeah, and good question. I think it's a really tricky one because obviously we've all been through the pandemic, and with the closing of stores, loads of businesses had to kind of pivot to online. They've put in a lot of money and resources to make that happen. So I can understand, for lots of businesses, they've done the work. It's more profitable. Do they really want to go back to thinking about stores? Not really. So I think, before the pandemic, there was a lot of chat about omnichannel, and during the pandemic, it really went just online. And I think we're starting to see that kind of omnichannel idea kind of creep back again. I do think because we have spent so much time online during the last couple of years, that people are really hungry for experiences, and that's really kind of showing in lots of different ways. The most obvious one is people taking a lot of holidays. They want to they want to experience life, but I do think it also impacts commerce. Definitely we're seeing it in home appliances. Of course, this doesn't apply to kind of all industries, but in home appliances, we're seeing that where online did so well during the pandemic, now people have gone straight back into store. We're seeing stores grow, and pure players are really struggling. I think stores do have a huge role to play. And when we're thinking about kind of what our channel strategy is, it's really thinking about what do stores offer that you just simply can't get online. One thing I think is, inspiration, thinking about kind of layout and point of sale displays and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, you can, having a beautiful website is really important, but sometimes, just seeing that product, in real life is hugely important, and it's people want to get a look and feel, and you can't really get that kind of that feel for size or the quality the same way online. And of course, advice is a really big one. I mentioned about kind of washing machines before, but just, of course, you can kind of replicate with chat bots and, kind of Q&A functionality, but sometimes just speaking to a person, which again, to kind of the point made earlier around why phones are also important, is you really can't replicate that. And I think that's a big part of the store experience. Just thinking forward as well, I think sometimes we see a lot of brands and retailers trying to kind of mirror in-store and online experiences, and I think they have really different roles to play. I think it's really important to make sure that stores are enjoyable. Consumers are spending their time to go in to stores, so how do we make them enjoyable places to be in? And increasingly, how do we make them multifunctional spaces? We've seen that, definitely before the pandemic, where people are talking about retail experience, putting in coffee shops, making, sofas, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's really important, and to really get the full experience of the product. So you're not having just kind of dead products, but products you can really interact with. And then also making sure that, less is more. Stores don't need to be a stockist the same way that they were. We've got, click and collect. We've got all these, great tools that we didn't have before. So making sure that stores now offer a great experience rather than just the product.
Yeah, I think the pandemic reminded people of what they were about to lose on the high street, actually, in some ways. Mm-hmm. So I think there'd been kind of this passive acceptance that, stores were closing down and the high street was losing its place. And then the pandemic made us miss lots of different things about our normal life and some of the things we took for granted. And I think retail shops were one of those, actually. And I think there's been a bit of we're seeing potentially a renaissance of physical space as a result of it. And I hope that continues as well. Desi, I think you wanted to add to this. Thank you, Shweta, by the way. I think you wanted to add to this, Desi.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Shweta jumped onto a really key point there, because technology is still some way behind providing the equivalent to, you could say, a really good physical tactile experience in the real world. So, I mean, we've got augmented reality and other types of technology, but there's still a gap between the two. So I do definitely agree that stores definitely are playing an important role. I mean, the research that we're doing right now in our organization, because we have stores as well as digital and other channels as well, not just e-commerce, but social media and so on, and community platforms as well. So consumers did jump very much so into the digital world, but consumers are still going to, now that stores are opening again, back to our stores. They are transitioning between different experiences. And so one of the learnings that we've been able to, gather that we're feeding back to our business right now, actually, as it happens, is to show them ways in which they can make the most out of the hybrid experiences that consumers are increasingly wanting to have or enjoy, and create experiences that are more seamless in the transition as a customer goes from one channel to the other, especially if it's digital to physical. And for most importantly, that the perception that the customer has of the brand and their products remains the same. So they could go online and go, oh, this is a premium products, but not necessarily a premium presentation. But they go into the store and go, wow, this is amazing. So it's making sure that the two correlate those experiences, which will enhance the consumers' the ability and choice or want to engage and invest in the brand.
Thank you very much. A great update on the end of Shweta's point there, Desi, as well. Appreciate it. We are rifling through the time, actually. So Steve's just said there, in the past, you've seen online used for research and conversion in physical channels. And so, Desi, your point about consistency is right. So some good support from your fellow panelists there. We're 47 minutes into this webinar, so I'm going to do another round of final questions with our panelists. You still got chance if you want to ask any of them a question, but we are soon going to be moving towards our close after some brilliant content so far. And really, I'm going to ask all of our panelists for some closing words on this subject around customer engagement and customer journey management. And so, Shweta, you've got the longest to think about the best answer, because I'm going to be coming to you last. But if I may start with you, Scott, really some golden nuggets or pearls of wisdom around this subject, some closing thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience, and that'll be the same question for all of you.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of echoing probably a bit what I've touched on today, and which I feel like everyone has, is with that customer journey, just having such opportunity now to have multiple different touch points. I feel like I'm getting a buzzword by saying phone call, but we're talking about the phone call from online to offline to different ways that people can interact. For me, I think it's important as a business that you can understand and have all the data to empower you to engage with your customers in the right way and understand really that true customer journey. And to do so, then for me, I feel you need to have, as I say, all data to hand by understanding all those different touch points. So whether it is someone engaging from an online perspective to the offline, having all that data to your disposal will give you the power to really understand and engage with the correct way with different personas to your customers to I guess create a better buying experience, customer journey to enhance you guys moving forward.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you again for your contribution to the panel, but also Infinity's sponsorship today as well. Really appreciate it. Steve, coming on to you to some closing words, if I may, please.
Yeah, I would just make the point that customer experience is fundamental success, and there are countless studies out there that demonstrate that large enterprises are investing more in their customer experience than ever before. In today's world, we're highly transactional, and there are always competing brands, regardless of what the product is. So the product becomes a commodity, and your commodity is either available, the exact replica at the shop next door, the website that's one click away. It could be the same product sold by another retailer. It could be a competing brand. So for the customer, the experience is now part of the transaction, and customers will go where the transaction experience is best for them. They're willing to sacrifice a few pounds, a few shillings, a few pence for the better customer experience. So if you fail the customer experience, it doesn't really matter how good your product is. You're going to fail.
Yeah, I think that plays out more so in other industries as well. You know, it's sort of that kind of, I'm willing to pay more to feel better about the whole transaction and experience as well. So I think it's a really interesting point, that has really seemed to have shifted in the consumer's mind. Do you think that's been sharpened a bit by the pandemic as well?
I think largely because consumers have more time to do their comparative shopping. And when you take the physical retail experience out and people are just shopping online, what are they looking at? If it's consumer electronics, let's take a smartphone as an example. I can buy the same smartphone from 5 or 6 different retailers with a fractional price difference. So what makes the difference to me is removing the friction from my shopping journey and the delivery experience. So I'm going to go to the website that is most comfortable for me to use, that has the courier service or the home delivery service that I have confidence in.
Got it. Thank you, sir. And thank you for your contributions from the panel today. I'm glad that the sound held out, and all the best to you over there in Abu Dhabi. Desi, close off some words for us.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think with all of the very fine questions and answers from our esteemed panelists, what we've discussed, all the questions, in fact, it only highlights the fact that users have different expectations. So some context is to kind of like wrap up, the thoughts that are really important to keep in mind. For example, we have customers' expectations for each of the various contexts or channels we've discussed so far, such as call data, online, physical stores, all of those things, moments in their journey, the information that a customer needs at each step of their journey, the channels or devices a customer may choose to use in each of these different contexts and at different stages. But then also the likely transitions from one channel to the next and their expectations around those transitions as well. So if we as a brand put in the effort to try to understand the above, and it can be a relatively simple process, just ask the questions to the consumer in the right way, then it will be possible to design an overarching journey that will make customer engagement easier for your consumer, especially if they want to engage with you in a positive or negative sense. But then also, as a last point, last nugget really, when it comes to websites, back in 2007, engagement was really, really low. I mean, we're talking about say 30 seconds if they were to hit your homepage. That's quite shallow, to be fair. But then 2 minutes if they went to the whole site. But then they would spend 4 minutes if they were trying to think about whether to engage with your brand once they hit your website. So again, to the first point on customer engagement, it also applies here too. If we can understand our consumer in all the moments we possibly can and just layer it on, don't try to understand everything in one go. That's impossible because users' needs change. And the last 24 months has really shown us how the behavior and needs have really changed over time. So just layer on your insights and then continue to try and learn how to use those insights to expose the right amount of information or features at the right time to your customer.
Thank you, sir. And as always, thank you so much for your contribution to the panel. And hopefully we can see you at one of our lives soon. Shweta,
Hello.
over to you to wrap the whole thing up. No pressure.
Good, yeah, I feel privileged. And I think, yeah, a lot of our panelists have touched on this in one way or another. My kind of takeout was really do the work to really get to know your category, to really get to know your shoppers, because we can talk about the customer journey, about customer engagement, and lots of theoretical terms, but there are so many nuances that there really isn't one size fits all. First we really need to understand, how do they associate with the product? How do they associate with the purchase journey? Is it something that they want to be doing? Do they want to spend ages on the website browsing? It's fun, or do they really want to get that purchase over and done with as quickly as possible? Because that will really impact, how do we kind of how do we lay out that path to purchase depending on how they are. And also, the demographic of the customer, there's going to be a type of shopper who really doesn't want to go into store, and there's a customer that only will shop in store. So again, that really changes how we need to kind of tailor where and how we kind of what touch points that we work with. And I would say that my final point is really put yourself in the customer's shoes. Once you have got to know them and how they interact with your category, make sure that you're really thinking about what do they want to know, what do they need, rather than thinking about what do I as a brand or a retailer want to tell them. And that will really help make things a lot easier for them and make that make that customer engagement a lot more desirable and better for the consumer.
Thank you, Shweta, and again for your contribution to the panel today. And thank you all to all of our speakers and to every one of you for joining us on a very sunny day today. Don't forget, we do record the sessions, and so the link for this will be available via usual channels such as LinkedIn and YouTube. And I'm sure our speakers are happy to hear from you direct as well. So you can find them on LinkedIn, or I'm sure we can connect you up via the gang here at the Retail Bulletin. We're back at 11 o'clock actually, so just taking a short break now, back with another panel which wraps up today's morning sessions on this customer engagement piece. But for now, to all of our lovely panelists on the screen, thank you. Enjoy the sunshine today, everybody, and do come back and see us at 11 o'clock. Thank you.